Schoology is committed to sustainable prosperity, and that inherently means safeguarding the future of our natural environment. For a while now, we've aligned ourselves with the Paris Agreement. There's minimum requirements for us to support that kind of alignment, but we want to go beyond that. We've gone about using international standards, actually, like how can we measure where we currently are? Because if you can't measure something, you can't improve it. So we measure all our greenhouse gas emissions. So those are the emissions from the direct operations of our business. There's the emissions from the electricity, the heating, the cooling that we purchase, and it's the emissions from sort of everything that's in our value chain. So everything upstream and downstream. That's like business travel, the emissions to do with you working from home, the hardware we buy, the software we use. Everything. And it's actually that last category there, that's about like 97-98% of our emissions. It's vast. We measure those things. To get technical on it, we're trying to reduce them by 90% in absolute terms by 2040. And that last category, that category with all these value chain emissions, that's the hardest one. By its definition, it's not directly within our control. So that's why the dates reasonably far out. But that's just the measuring piece, right? And there's a whole lot of actions we can take off the back of that to reduce our emissions. But it's also about offsetting and neutralizing the emissions that we create. So making sure that we're using financial investments to invest in projects that help with that offsetting and do good where we're doing bad, in effect. We're managing to reduce our emissions and we're offsetting more than we had set out to do. It's a great place to be, but this challenge only gets harder. The margins become smaller and smaller and our business is growing. So everything else is growing, and yet somehow we have to have a smaller and smaller impact on the natural environment around us. The sort of final piece of this puzzle that's really important to us is we have to hold ourselves to account on this, as we do with everything else. And in this instance, to do that, we publish a report every year that sets out our emissions, like broken down into the different categories so that anyone can read it, but also analyze how we're doing against our targets. Are we on track? Being open about the actions we are taking, the things we are choosing to prioritize to get there. So sustainability is ultimately woven right through our business strategy. It's really important for us to hold ourselves to account across the board in that business strategy. And to that end, EcoVadis are independent experts who run assessments of an organization's sustainability. They do that based entirely on documentary evidence of policies, of action, and of results. They cross-cut across a bunch of themes. It's like labor and human rights, sustainable procurement, environment, and they give you a score each year, and they give you recommendations around improvements. And for us, we've been doing this assessment for 3 years, and our score has only been improving. And ultimately, because they make this assessment, they do this assessment sort of tailored towards individual industries, it gives us a way of comparing to other similar businesses. The reality is the main thing we get out of the assessments is insights on how and where we can do better. So those then feed into our strategic plans for the year ahead. Sometimes they're small little actions, small little tweaks in the organization, sometimes they're bigger. But that's what the EcoVadis assessment ultimately does for us. It is about setting that direction and making sure we're not just marking our own homework.